Dear friends, thank you all for joining us at this session on corporate finance strategies to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm delighted to welcome so many of the UN Global Compact signatories, friends, and partners to our virtual launch of the Principles for Integrated SDG Finance and Investment. These new principles are necessary and timely because we believe that companies have a vital role to play in SDG financing today. They are key to connecting the finance community with real-world outcomes that advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. For the UN Global Compact, the launch of these finance principles is the next step in the evolution of our thinking about what successful businesses look like. In our view, companies that spend time learning about sustainability and integrating it into their policies and practices will outperform businesses that fail to do so. This is true both in good economic times and in periods of disruption, like the current global crisis that has been brought on by COVID-19. And sustainability will be increasingly essential as we cope with the impact of the long-term crises such as climate change. To be credible in their contributions to sustainable development, companies must have integrated strategies that align with the SDGs. They must support that strategy by investing in practices, services, and innovations that move us down the path towards fulfilling the 2030 Agenda. If we look at the numbers, it's easy to see why chief financial officers are so important in this effort. CFOs oversee more than $14 trillion in corporate investments annually. That includes trillions in foreign direct investment, much of which goes to emerging markets where the need for inclusive and sustainable development is most acute. CFOs are also influential advocates for their company's sustainability strategies in their interactions with investors, board members, policymakers, and other stakeholders. The principles that we are launching today were developed by CFOs for CFOs. They represent the first integrated UN-backed framework for sustainable corporate finance in 4 critical areas: goal setting, strategy, financing, and investor communications. I would like to thank the CFOs and members of their teams who have devoted so much time and expertise to these principles for integrated SDG finance and investment. The product of their work is a holistic guide that will accelerate the private sector's transition to greater accountability and greater resilience. Many thanks as well to the various companies and institutional partners who have contributed to this new framework. This launch is, of course, only the beginning. The UN Global Compact is committed to working with all our participants to implement these principles. At the same time, our CFO task force will be working on new materials to help companies apply the framework across different sectors and regions. We welcome all of you to join us in developing a broad and robust market for SDG investments. Let us create the future of sustainable finance together by uniting in the business of a better world. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I think we're live. We had a little bit of a glitch, but we're going to sort this out and make it a very dynamic session. Nothing like, anything keeping you on your toes in those times of COVID. So I am here with my 2 co-chairs, and we will be bringing people back in and forth in the room to ensure that we only have 4 or 5 people at the time. So it is my great pleasure to welcome you today to the official launch of the CFO Principles on Integrated Innovation, Investment and Finance. I have today the pleasure to introduce you to some of our members, but before I do that, let me let Sandra officially launch the video. Sandra is our new CEO and Executive Director, and she will be officially launching the principles. Nico, over to you.
Dear friends, thank you all for joining us at this session on corporate finance strategies to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Dear friends, thank you all for joining us at this session on corporate finance strategies to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm delighted to welcome so many of the UN Global Compact signatories, friends, and partners to our virtual launch of the Principles for Integrated SDG Finance and Investment. These new principles are necessary and timely because we believe that companies have a vital role to play in SDG financing today. They are key to connecting the finance community with real-world outcomes that advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. For the UN Global Compact, the launch of these finance principles is the next step in the evolution of our thinking about what successful businesses look like. In our view, companies that spend time learning about sustainability and integrate it into their policies and practices will outperform businesses that fail to do so. This is true both in good economic times and in periods of disruption, like the current global crisis that has been brought on by COVID-19. And sustainability will be increasingly essential as we cope with the impact of the long-term crises, such as climate change. To be credible in their contributions to sustainable development, companies must have integrated strategies that align with the SDGs. They must support that strategy by investing in practices, services, and innovations that move us down the path towards fulfilling the 2030 Agenda. If we look at the numbers, it's easy to see why chief financial officers are so important in this effort. CFOs oversee more than $14 trillion in corporate investments annually. That includes trillions in foreign direct investment, much of which goes to emerging markets where the need for inclusive and sustainable development is most acute. CFOs are also influential advocates for their company's sustainability strategies in their interactions with investors, board members, policymakers, and other stakeholders. The principles that we are launching today were developed by CFOs for CFOs. They represent the first integrated UN-backed framework for sustainable corporate finance in 4 critical areas: goal setting,
Right, I think we might have an issue with the video. Thank you, Sandra, for launching officially the principles. I wanted to kind of give a quick intro before I pass on to Alberto and other speakers. A year ago, some of you might remember, we launched the CFO task force for the SDGs at the UNGA, so exactly a year on ago, with a small group of companies, which I wanted to name today and thank. So obviously NL and PIMCO, who are here, and my 2 co-chairs, as well as Eni, Pirelli, Iberdrola, and Turner. The 6 companies were the founding members of the CFO task force. And a year on, we've been joined by 34 other CFOs and C-suite members. We're going to hear from some of them today. And what are the principles? And the principles are actually now available live on our website, and you will hear more about it from Scott and Alberto. There are 4 of them, and what we've asked sort of each of our members to illustrate what those CFOs actually mean for their businesses. So looking forward to having those presentations today. Without further ado, I will pass on to Alberto for the first introduction, and then we will bring people back in the room. So if Fernando, the CFO from BNBev, get yourself ready, and I'll make sure that we bring you next. Thank you, Alberto.
Thank you, Marie. Hi, Scott, and good morning, everybody. I would like to thank the United Nations Global Compact for organizing this event in these extraordinary circumstances we are living. And we hope that 2020 that will be certainly remembered the year in which this largest pandemic in recent history has eaten us at a cost of 2 high lives. Is so calling us to act quickly. And this action is related to reverse the world's social and economic crisis since 1928. But I think that we have not to waste some key teachings this crisis gave us. And on the other side, we know that climate crisis is going ahead, and these two factors combined create an extraordinary momentum. And this is pushing us as managers of some of the largest companies in the world to accelerate the creation of new sustainable paradigms for business, financial markets, society, and many other fields of human endeavor, leaving no one behind. That's the opportunity we have in front of us need to be grasped and not wasted in this time. And so we all know that there is increasingly evident that ESG factors have undeniable economic and financial implications that the financial community can no longer ignore. It's our firm belief as CFOs of this task force that only through a big shift of our business model into sustainable ones, we will be able to relaunch and accelerate the economic growth with a new development model finally aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations. And the UN Global Compact, within this unprecedented effort, asked the CFOs of some of the largest companies globally to demonstrate how sustainable development leads to superior value creation, and how quickly and effectively this could transform the economy into a new concept. The concept that producing positive impact on environment and the society is the only way to create economical value. It's widely acknowledged in the policy making that the corporate sector and capital markets will have to play a key role to bridge the SDG financing gap. But we all know that corporations play a fundamental role in the development of our society and the economy, and when effectively motivated by attractive returns, can mobilize together with efficient financial markets incredible resources. So let's make sustainable business choices become customary choices to build long-lasting companies in order to reach the highest level of profitability and the lower levels of risk. Let's work on this with all the conditions and the culture needed. Let's make it become business as usual, and investment, financial mobilization, and consequently, the achievement of 2030 targets will easily follow. And it is here where we, as Chief Financial Officer, are called to provide a key contribution, not with statement or promises, but with clear targets, results, and financial evidence, though demonstrating that the integration of the SDGs in the corporate strategy effectively drives the achievement of more solid, profitable, and long-lasting companies. Today, the CFO Task Force for the SDG is unveiling a new framework of principles, whose purpose is to provide guidance to those companies that are seeking sustainability and value. Together, we are creating a new comprehensive definition of corporate impact and a way to measure it. We are driving the definition of integrated SDG strategies and investments. We are developing a common framework for the sustainable development, finance development, and we are addressing the engagement of all our stakeholders with a new integrated SDG communication and reporting. Our task is not to propose new guidelines or make vague suggestions. We are determined to commit to specific, ambitious targets and act through concrete measures. Under this strong resolution, our group of companies will commit to new and additional sustainable investments, to the issue of new and additional sustainable financial debt, and to disclose our result in a new integrated reports that can easily show the relation between sustainable choices and economical value. Our goal is to collect all the best expertise provided by the member companies and by everyone institutions, third parties, experts, and working groups across the world to roll them into actionable frameworks useful to reach the ambitious target we are about to set. Because a decade of action has just started, and that will be our guiding star. And finally, our hope is that 2020 will be also remembered as the year in which a group of multinational companies initially, and then many others, framed and delivered the foundation of a new sustainable economy, allowing the whole society and the new generation to benefit for those choices for many years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alberto. That's great. And as a call to action, we have many other companies who've joined us, as I said, and we're looking forward to have many more. So let me introduce you to Fernando Tannenbaum. I think he's one of our latest joinees in the task force, and we're very happy to have you. Over to you, Fernando, to tell us a bit more about your thinking on Principle 1 specifically, but just in general as well. How does AB InBev look at those issues? Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. As you mentioned, I'm Fernando Tannenbaum, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Anheuser-Busch InBev. I want to thank the United Nations Global Compact and my fellow CFOs for the opportunity to speak today. I also want to thank the United Nations for their leadership in the recovery, for bringing us all together safely this week, so that we can continue working together to find solutions for some of the world's biggest challenges. AB InBev has been a member of the United Nations Global Compact since 2005, and we are excited to join this task force as a founding member to build the roadmap for how the private sector, and more specifically corporate finance, can help deliver the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Why does it matter to AB InBev? As the CFO of the world's leading brewer, I'm focused on building a company to last for the next 100 years by driving organic growth in a sustainable way. And for beer, that starts with the sustainability of our local communities. Our beers are almost entirely sourced, brewed, and enjoyed locally, making us deeply connected to the communities in which we live and work. The business model for beer is a very local business. Indeed, for our business is dependent on the world meeting on the Sustainable Development Goals. And when it comes to SDGs, it's all about impact at the local level. When our communities thrive, we thrive. And over the last 6 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges to everyone. Because of our interconnectedness with local communities and our powerful value chain, we are a unique engine to speed up the recovery that lies in front of us. The brew industry is a significant job creator in agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, grocery, and bars and restaurants. It is estimated in the US that each job in the brew industry generates 31 additional full-time jobs, with similar estimates in other markets. We are more focused today than ever before on delivering our sustainable development commitments and building a brighter future. AB InBev's purpose is to bring people together for a better world. This is why we are committed to the SDGs and harnessing our entire value chain, including our suppliers, employees, brands, customers, and consumers. We are accelerating this work and exploring new ways to leverage our scale for sustainable development. In short, brewing beers depends on health environment and thriving communities. This is why, as we like to say, sustainability is our business. It is rooted in all we do, and it drives our decision-making across our diverse geographic footprint. We have worked over the years to align our business strategy to deliver on the social and environmental goals that are most material to our business, and where we can make the greatest impact: water, agriculture, climate, packaging, smart drinking, and road safety. The SDGs are a clear reflection of our ambition and provide a strong platform for partnership and innovation to accelerate impact at scale. Sustainability is not new to AB InBev. With our culture of dreaming big and never being satisfied with our results, we have a track record of setting bold sustainability challenges and taking ownership to drive meaningful results. Like how we improved our water efficiency from more than 5 down to 2.8 hectoliters of water per hectoliter of beer since 2007. But we are not stopping there. We are testing new innovations to further reduce that metric and minimize our environmental footprint. To continue holding ourselves accountable, we have set 4 ambitious goals to be achieved by 2025 and have developed targets and KPIs to track and assure our progress. 1. Smart agriculture. 100% of our direct farmers will be skilled, connected, and financially empowered. 2. Circular packaging. 100% of our products will be in packaging that is in returnable or majority recycled content. 3. Water stewardship. 100% of our communities in high stress areas will have measurably improved water availability and quality. And 4. Climate action. 100% of our purchased electricity will be from renewable sources, and we plan to reduce CO2 emissions across our value chain by a quarter. To bring these goals to life, in agriculture, for instance, we work with local farmers to access skills, training, financing, and markets. In doing so, we boost their yields, incomes, and resilience. These improvements can be applied not just for the crops we source, but also to other crops grown by farmers for food and other income. This is especially impactful in smallholder markets where we were sourcing local staple crops like cassava and sorghum for brewing, moving farmers from subsistence to commercial farming and improving livelihoods. Transitioning from an informal to a more formal market has its challenge for farmers and for us, which is why we're working with our partner BenQ to implement their blockchain-enabled platform in countries like Uganda and Zambia. This brings transparency and security to developing supply chains, while also creating an economic identity for financial empowerment. Going beyond our public commitments, our global footprint matched with our local approach put us in a position where we can quickly respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. We work closely with governments and other stakeholders to leverage our scale, capabilities, and resources to support the fight against the pandemic and do our part in the economic recovery. For example, we have leveraged our facilities to produce and donate millions of units of hand sanitizer, face shields, and packaged water. We also helped build public healthcare facilities in Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Brazil, and Peru. The success of these endeavors is thanks to the rapid mobilization, agility, and creativity of our local teams. It is encouraging and humbling to see that these programs are making a difference, especially through recognitions received, such as the United Nations Solidarity Award for our initiatives in Brazil. In closing, I look forward to working with my fellow CFOs and the UNGC to innovate and test how corporate finance can be leveraged to achieve the SDGs. I'm eager to share what I have learned through AB InBev's sustainability journey, especially our approach to target setting and measurement. And I embrace the opportunity to learn from my peers and partners as we develop the path forward and find solutions that make business sense for the delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals. 2030 is less than 10 years away. The time to act is now. Count on us at AB InBev to work with all of you to speed up the recovery and build a stronger, better world. Thank you.
Fernando, thank you so much for a very compelling opening on Principle 1. Look forward to continue working with you, and no relation at all to that, but may you please leave the room and I'm going to bring the next CEO in. This is how it works. Sorry, CFO, out and in, but looking forward to having you joining us soon. Graham, over to you, and I will ask, I think it's Matt as well, to join us from Verizon. But so let me introduce you, Graham, as the CFO of Unilever. I think everyone probably would have heard of Unilever. We're having a fantastic, sort of panel AB and Bev just talked about bringing peers, where I think the industry is quite well represented today. But we're looking forward to hearing your views as well. Graham, over to you.
Well, thanks, Marie, and hello, everybody. First of all, thanks to Fernando for those great insights and thought-provoking comments around Principle 1. I think we'd all agree that the world needs beer now more than ever, and it's just fascinating to hear what the world's leading brewer is doing about that. Let me start by thanking the UNGC team and my fellow CFOs on the task force for the opportunity to speak today about Principle 2. And Principle 2 is integrated SDG strategy and investments. Now, the sustainability challenges that we face and the negative impacts of the COVID pandemic are hitting those who can least afford it the hardest. Last week, I read the Goalkeepers report from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's the annual report which tracks how the world is actually progressing on the SDGs. And the report says that the pandemic alone has already pushed another 37 million people into extreme poverty. Now, tragic as that is in itself, we must recognize that this adds to that group of people in the world who are already most impacted by the negative consequences of climate change and inequality. This truly is a double whammy of circumstances. Now, I'm not here today in any sense to suggest that Unilever, any other company, or any group of companies or CFOs have all the answers needed to solve this. We don't, and I think it would be vanity to suggest that we do. I do, however, find it heartening to consider some of the positive things to have emerged from the current state of our world, in particular, strongly heightened awareness and interest in ESG investing, multi-stakeholder capitalism, and indeed the very positive and galvanizing idea that we must all work together to build back better. In this broad context, I take this opportunity to support and encourage the task force on its work, in particular, its very strong spirit of knowledge sharing, of collaboration, and of innovation. And all of that makes me really optimistic, actually, and excited for the future. And while there are no doubt a great many uncertainties ahead and much that we cannot foresee, and of course that's always uncomfortable for us as CFOs, there are a very few important things that we do know and that are worth sharing today. So let me offer two organizing thoughts to all of this. The first is that a multi-stakeholder approach and an integrated SDG-inspired business strategy is a winning business strategy. And the second thought is that it's not possible to prescribe a magic pill that will enable this integrated SDG strategy and investments philosophy for all companies in all sectors all of the time. An SDG-inspired business strategy is a winner across stakeholder groups and leads to superior value creation for longer. But creating just a few winning and leading large companies isn't going to be enough, because to create the sort of systemic change that we're seeking, we're going to have to show that this path works for all companies and so move the wider corporate economy in a much, much more substantial way. And this is where an overly prescriptive and exclusive approach will not work. You can't just set a rigid framework and say, we fixed it, comply with this, or you're not allowed to be in our club anymore. We must remember that there will always be a place, and indeed a need, for nuance, for allowances of scale and resources, and above all, for sector specificity. And in all my years of engagement in this space with the WEF, with the WBCSD, TCFD, A4S, and others, this is a key theme that I've been trying hard to register and encourage. So digging into our first thought of a winning business model, what Principle 2 says is that a business should consider the integration of SDG impact theses into strategic objectives and initiatives that build upon existing corporate strategies. Now, that's really quite a mouthful. In practical terms, our example at Unilever is what we call the Unilever Compass. That's our single integrated business strategy that embeds ESG through three simple core principles: that brands with purpose grow, that companies with purpose last, and that people with purpose will thrive. And this is our take on that particular part of Principle 2. We have one single integrated strategy built around purpose and sustainable business. It's good for the people, good for the planet, and through that strategy, generating superior financial returns for longer. In fact, the vision part of the Unilever Compass says explicitly that we will demonstrate how this business strategy drives superior performance. And we want to do that, of course, to drive change at scale by showing it's possible and so encouraging others. The evidence is already in front of us. Those companies performing highest on ESG grow 3.5% faster than those at the bottom. And on the investor side, according to KPMG, ESG investing now accounts for more than 25% of all assets under management worldwide, with the three largest credit rating agencies now including steps to engage and embed ESG into their ratings processes. Now, the team at Unilever are highly ambitious in our sustainability innovation and evolution, particularly around climate risk. But we're also very aware of the fact that most companies just don't have at their disposal the resources that we have. And the last thing we should want to do is to scare companies off by wagging our fingers at them and saying we're not being ambitious enough or you're not trying hard enough. We cannot oversimplify the challenges here, and I strongly believe that our aim needs to be to engage and to encourage rather than to dictate or to disavow. Like any strategy, we are directing our capital and our resources in Unilever to where they have the greatest impact in driving our compass forwards. In June this year, for example, we pledged that Unilever's brands will collectively invest 1 billion euros in a new climate and nature fund. And that fund will be used over the next 10 years for our brands to invest in projects around landscape restoration, reforestation, carbon sequestration, wildlife, and water. Earlier this month, we also announced that we will ring-fence a further 1 billion euros for our Clean Future programme to finance biotechnology research, CO2 and waste utilisation, and low-carbon chemistry. And that will help to drive the transition away from the use of fossil fuel-derived chemicals within our home care business, which is 20% of Unilever. External partnerships with other participants in the investment value chain are also crucial to delivering that integrated strategy. For example, we participate alongside other companies like P&G, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Dow, and Danone in Circulate Capital's Ocean Fund. That's a $135 million fund investing in new business models and technologies to increase collection, aggregation, and recycling for the reduction of plastic pollution in South Asia and Southeast Asia. That's essential for the planet, but it's also vital for our brands and how are they seen by consumers around the world. How we manage our balance sheet has also changed in line with the themes of Principle 2 of setting investment criteria and decision-making based on SDG-inspired impact alongside more orthodox financial risk and return investment criteria. Unilever's pension funds have been a signatory to the PRI since 2013. Our UK Fund Chief Investment Officer, together with our Head of Trustee Services, both provide joint oversight of our investment portfolio, including the risks and opportunities related to climate change. And our in-house investment teams run very frequent ESG and climate training sessions for our independent pension fund trustees. On the asset management side, there is an obvious upward trend towards sustainable investing. According to McKinsey, global sustainable investment now tops $30 trillion. That's up by 68% since 2014, and it's up tenfold since 2004. And this year, BlackRock announced that it will aim to increase its sustainable asset holdings from $90 billion to an incredible $1 trillion within just a decade. If you're following the money, having an integrated SDG-inspired sustainable business strategy would seem to be a very sensible place to start. None of this works, though, without proper corporate governance mechanisms to incentivize and monitor the implementation of an integrated SDG strategy and investments. And that's also captured under Principle 2. In Unilever's case, the board exercises oversight and governance through our Corporate Responsibility Committee. And in the Unilever executive team, the management of sustainability is shared right across the whole leadership team, as you would expect, given its tight integration with our strategy. Alongside this, we believe it's important to have external and objective advice on specific issues so that we can continuously challenge our thinking and the strategy, bringing the outside in. For this, we have a Sustainability Advisory Council with independent expert specialists in sustainability. Sometimes that is a bit of an uncomfortable forum for us, but it is extremely valuable nonetheless. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, sustainability is an integral part of our long-term reward plans, with 25% of our long-term incentives depending on our progress on sustainability. Let me wrap up where I started. We've been at this for quite a long time. We are very well resourced and we're very committed. So please don't use us as the benchmark. It's much more important to raise the floor than the ceiling. And in that respect, the principles being introduced today are a simply fantastic launchpad for getting started. Thank you, and let me hand back to you, Marie.
Thank you so much. Raising the floor, raising the ceilings, that's definitely what we're going to be focusing on for the next 18 months. The task force is set for a bit longer, so we will, I hope you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. We will be focusing, once we've now launched the principles, on the actual integration. You know, some companies here are a lot more advanced than others, and that's the whole idea of bringing, you know, sort of others behind us and helping us with this effort. So thank you so much, Graham. I'm going to call Cecile to join us, who's going to be speaking right after Matt, and I will introduce Matt. And thank you, Graham, if you
That's great. I'll see you kick me out
the room. Thank you. We'll get a bigger room next year. Matt, you are the CFO of Verizon, and it's a pleasure to have you here with us today as well. Looking forward to having your insights on principle number 3. So for those of you who are looking, I know there's conversations on the chat of where can I find those principles. They've just been launched on our website, so cfotaskforce.org. Have a look. It's right all here, and number 3, as I read it, is around integrated corporate SDG finance. So Matt, tell us a bit more about that and what it means for Verizon.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you to Sander Ojambo and to the UN Global Compact for inviting me to speak to you today at this global launch of the CFO principles on integrated SDG investments and finance. I'm proud to be a part of such an innovative network of like-minded chief financial officers from around the globe who are committed to tackling the challenge of sustainability and to making progress toward achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Verizon is pleased to join our peer Global Compact companies in committing to the principles and working to implement them into our day-to-day operations. As a task force member, I recognize the critical role that businesses and CFOs will play in helping to identify solutions for financing the SDGs. As we enter this next decade, which is the decade of action to achieve the SDGs, we know we have a lot of important work ahead to create sustainable growth opportunities globally. As CFOs, we understand that we play a central role in leveraging corporate investments as catalysts for sustainable growth and social impact. We have an obligation to use this platform to encourage companies to align their financial strategies with sustainable development and to integrate sustainability into corporate finance and investments. The principles are a vital tool to tap into the potential of the private sector to contribute to the realization of the SDGs. In support of this goal, Principle 3, which is focused on integrated corporate SDG finance, encourages us to operationalize how SDG considerations are factored into corporate finance and investment processes, including capital raising, impact reporting, internal investment, and investor communications. Because Principle 3 values companies sharing experiences and best practices on integrating sustainability into corporate finance, I would like to take a few minutes to share some of Verizon's recent experiences with you. Last week, Verizon conducted our second green bond offering, just a few weeks after we completed the allocation of our first green bond, positioning us as a telecommunications industry leader in green finance. We expect to use the net proceeds of this second $1 billion offering primarily for long-term renewable energy purchase agreements that support the construction of solar and wind facilities that will bring new renewable energy to the grids that power our networks. Verizon is supporting the transition to a greener grid by making substantial investments in renewable energy. We have set 2 ambitious goals: to source or generate renewable energy equivalent to 50% of our total annual electricity consumption by 2025, and to be carbon neutral in our operations by 2035. The Green Bond will help us fund these ambitious goals and support Verizon's commitment to advance ESG. The really neat thing about the Green Bond platform for Verizon is the momentum and the buzz within Verizon Finance, the company overall, and the dialogue with external stakeholders in terms of shining a light on our sustainability goals. The energy level has been noticeably different in this arena and has been a very positive step toward advancing the goals around Principle 3. In connection with our second Green Bond, we adopted a green financing framework that expressly aligns with the SDGs. Under the framework, the proceeds of our green financing may only be used to finance or refinance projects in investment categories that align with the UN SDGs in areas such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, green buildings, sustainable water management, and biodiversity and conservation. Our green financing framework sets forth potential environmental impact metrics that we will report on for each category of eligible green investments to which we allocate proceeds. As Verizon CFO, I hope that our leadership in green bonds, where proceeds are used to fund important initiatives for a healthier, cleaner future, inspires companies around the globe to pursue similar objectives and have more opportunities like this one to benefit from each other's learnings. Verizon also used this recent offering as an opportunity to show our commitment to supporting minority-led capital markets transactions. Verizon has had a long history of partnering with diversity firms on capital market transactions, but this green bond marked an important milestone as we partner with 2 African-American owned firms as lead underwriters on this deal. In fact, the principals from each of the 4 underwriters we used, whether a diversity firm or a large investment bank, are African-American leaders. As a company, Verizon is committed to promoting racial equity on all spectrums, including in the capital markets, and I hope that we can inspire other issuers to take action to address structural inequity and economic disparity faced by African-American and other minority and women-owned businesses, while also promoting further diversity within the traditional investment banks. Achieving the 2030 goals in this decade of action will require investment, creativity, and collaboration. I applaud the task force's many partnerships in this area, including the partnership with A4S, the Prince's Accounting for Sustainability project, of which I'm also a member. It is through these kinds of extensive partnerships for action that we will achieve meaningful progress towards the SDGs. The CFO principles provide an opportunity for this network to play an integral and unique role in this effort. I look forward to our partnership. Marie, back to you.
Thank you so much, Matt. So much to digest there, and it's an unpack. We don't have the ability today to kind of go through Q&As, but I'm sure we can follow up. And I think one thing particularly resonated around the partnerships, and that's something that we're going to grow as well. So not just with CFOs, but kind of key organizations and bringing more people to the table. And the other thing that, and I don't want to do this because it's so expected, but the fact that Cecile and I are the 2 women at the table today, I think that's something that we're going to work on as well and ensure that we have even more representations and diversity on our task force. So, Cecile, thank you so much for joining us. You are the CFO of Danone. Bonjour. We're delighted to have you. And over to you to illustrate, I think, the last principle, which is Principle 4. Obviously, it's all about, we've looked at the strategy, the understanding of the materiality of companies, how that can be integrated, and also the financial instruments that can be used as CFOs. But the kind of very important chapter around reporting and communications to investors. So I will let you comment on that, Cecile, and it's great to have you.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, everyone, for having me. So I'm up for the fourth principle of the task force. It's not because I love reporting, but I think that integrated SDG communication and reporting will, at the end, fully connect the short-term financial performance and the long-term sustainable value creation of the business. And this is today exactly the missing link that we have in the conversation that we have with our investors. And it is through communication and reporting that investors make their investment decision. So in short, I would say that what gets measured gets actionable. And for investors, what they know is what they base their value on. So if I put it that way, it might be like the last principle, it's the fourth principle, but at the end of the day, I think it's the first one. It's the first one because it's the one that ultimately will enable all of us collectively to unlock capital and create not specific sub-market that will help financing part of it, but will create financing as a mainstream. If we go through what I think are the three fundamentals around that topic of reporting and communication, the first one is integration. If we want to measure progress towards SDG, it needs to be fully embedded do business every day in each company. We know that every company is operating into very different businesses, ecosystems, supply chains, and each of us has to identify from the 17 SDGs which one we directly impact by doing business and which one we indirectly contribute to, because at the end of the day, everything is interdependent. So we all have a direct link, which goes with direct impact, or indirect link with contributing to the SDGs. And once this is done, then we can really choose the right KPIs that will make sure that we build progress in our contribution versus the target that we all pursue, which is to deliver ultimately the goals in 2030. And what we've done, for example, at Danone is in 2017, we've defined our framework of action, which is 9 integrated goals for business, brands, and overall the inclusive partners, people, and broader ecosystem. And we have pegged these integrated goals on the SDGs. And now in our integrated report, what we do is by delivering the progress on our integrated goals, we also deliver and monitor the KPI and progress on the SDG. For example, we have a goal which is preserve and renew the planet resources, which is pegged to several SDGs. Number 2, zero hunger. Number 6, clean water and sanitation. Number 12, on responsible production and consumption. And obviously 13 on climate action. So that's very important because it's when we are reconciling and integrating everything in the same business model that we can make the conversation happen and we can make the investment happen. So we really need to make sure that we all integrate, and it's not business on one side and SDGs on the other side, but it's fully integrated. Then it leads me to the second part of the fourth principle around reporting. We are talking here about how we can better integrate in one single conversation the financial and non-financial reporting, and we have to keep in mind several things. First, there are things that we can already measure, and it's been a long time. In Danone, we have SAP reporting on CO2 emissions since 2009, for example. There are things that we'll never be able to manage as we do for financial KPIs. And there are things that we are not yet able to measure, but we will create what needs to be created in terms of measurement. And this task force is an opportunity also to make sure that this happens on the way. And finally, we need to be very careful because the idea is not to multiply KPIs, to have one size fits all, forget about materiality, comparability. So we will need to make sure that the KPIs we choose are really going to prove an impact at the end. We are not measuring for the sake of filling Excel spreadsheet, but really to make sure that what we measure is really where the impact will be. Because if you look at today, we live in a time where there are hundreds of initiatives in terms of reporting non-financial performance. I'm sure all of the companies that are here today and the others, they have teams and teams only working on reporting. And I think we need to be careful not to end up in something very complex that will not help investment decision, but really focus on what is going to be relevant for one industry, which might be relevant from another one, what is going to be material enough in terms of making a difference in investment decision, and something that is quite harmonized so that people don't have to look at too many data at the end, because we have a common goal, which is illustrate each of us the progress towards the SDGs. So we should be able to find a way to make it actionable, to make it simple enough, and to make it relevant. And if we look at what we've done at Danone, so last year when we reported the performance of 2019, we decided to give visibility to a new metric, which is the EPS post-carbon emission. It's a start in order to make it visible and try to set already an integration between financial and non-financial, and make sure that we will look at and monitor the progress of this EPS following carbon emission by putting a value on carbon and making sure that we start integrating everything, because that's the only way we will be able to really move in an efficient and collective manner towards delivering the SDGs. And each of us is talking about example from our own business, but I think at the end, what is important in this task force is the collective part. Because if we are collective on that, we will start to create impact in a way that is really going to matter, and not each of us trying to invent its own way of measuring and saying the story. The third one is transparency. Transparency also starts with our clients and customers. We are in an activity where our customers and clients, they are citizens. When they choose a brand or a company, they want to know who is behind, what they are doing, and they choose to buy a brand, and they choose to buy a brand from a company, also making sure that the company is activist and is clear on what it brings outside of the product, but in the impact it does on health, planet, and society. So we owe that, and the people who are ultimately using our product deserve to know what we do. So it's also a way to increase awareness, not only for the community or our stakeholder, but for the broader society, so that everyone, and it's again collective, when people choose a brand, they choose the world they want to live in somehow. So we owe it really to our customers. If maybe to conclude, when we said that we need to achieve the SDGs in 2030 because it's around value creation and sustainability, I think it's also and foremost because it's absolutely critical for the resilience and the existence of our businesses, our planet, our society. And I come back on what I said, which is it will only be managed if we go collective. Planet is a collective topic. It's companies, it's government, it's NGOs, it's citizens, it's everyone. So we need to use this task force also to make sure that we start embarking into a journey that is collective. And for that, it's also important what I said around harmonizing, around making the thing relevant, comparable, so that at the end of the day, it's not one more reporting, but it's the one that will make the difference and that will embark investment from the investors community. So in this context, I'm very happy to be there, and I hope we can make it happen and we can really accelerate the delivery of the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Merci, Cécile. Thank you so much. It's been great to have your people for. We're going to count on you to make it happen. As I was saying, the next phase of the task force, once now that we have the principles, is going to be to focus on action. I know that Alberto and Scott and everyone's kind of eager, and myself, to do that. So, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to take a little bit of time to rest, and then next week we're launching that. And I'm looking forward to kind of get you on board and continuing, having your support. So thank you so much, Cécile. And I think collective really resonates very much with us. So let's do that. Thank you. And over to you, Scott, for the last, I think, few minutes. And I will then, sort of thank everyone, and we can move on. But thank you, Cécile, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's a pretty tough act to follow these inspirational speakers, but I'll do my best here to sum up. I also want to thank all the founding members too that that weren't able to speak today, but thank you for your vision and leadership in helping us launch this initiative. We think it's going to be very impactful. I also want to thank Sanda, and I want to thank Marie and the entire UN Global Compact Sustainable Finance team. They've worked tirelessly on this project as well as many other things. And I also want to thank Alberto. He's my co-chair and been a very powerful force in moving us forward with the team at NL. So many different sessions we've had together, but happy to reach this point. We've got a lot of work to do. We'll still be busy, but thank you, Alberto and the NL team. I think it's fair to say, when the SDGs were launched in 2015, that none of us would have envisioned where we are today in terms of this realization of both the fragility of the economic system, our own vulnerability, and the importance of the SDGs. And so I think if there's a silver lining to this crisis, it's that it's really focused thinking on how not only we deal with this crisis, but how we build back better and how we deal with the existential threats that are associated with climate change in particular. And I think the SDGs as a global language of sustainability have, it's really grown in importance over time. I think looking back just even a few years ago, it wasn't as widely recognized how important they are in terms of being the global language of sustainability. So that's also something that's very refreshing. And I think as we've heard today, I think we can safely say that finally the world of finance is switching on. And that's true for investors, investment firms like my own here at PIMCO, but the millions of investors alongside of us. It's true when we see what's happening in the banking sector. And now, as we've seen with the chief financial officers of the world's leading firms joining initiatives like this one, it's safe to say that I think, following the money is happening. People are following the money. And that's why we're so excited about the launch of this initiative. I mean, the CFOs that control, as it was cited earlier, $14 trillion of annual investment can really make a difference. And they're absolutely critical to making this work. I also want to emphasize that we strongly believe that there is enough global capital to achieve the SDGs. And what we're talking about is the need for alignment. We want to create those triple win situations. What's winning for business, winning for societies, winning for the planet. They all go hand in hand. And increasingly, as was noted, we see that company stakeholders, all of its consumers, the employees, the investors, they all want to be associated with companies that are leading this transformation. And of course, to do that, we need a financial system that works for all and more efficiently channels the investment in the right activities in the right way. And here too, it's refreshing. We've seen a lot of innovation this year. I mean, I think there's been, if you've been following the markets, we heard about some of the activity today, but there's been an explosion in issuance of things like green bonds and innovative things like SDG bonds and social bonds and COVID response financial instruments. And I think this is an area where the CFO task force can be very influential in even accelerating that trend that's in place and really mobilizing more capital to be aligned with sustainability. So I think, you know, the CFO is definitely launching this initiative today. Realize there's no time to waste. As Marie mentioned, maybe we'll take a brief break from our preparation, you know, for this event. But there really isn't any time to waste. And so, you know, I want you to join me in this call to action, asking not just certainly all the CFOs of the Global Compact, but those who are not even in the Global Compact yet, to join us, to think about these principles, find ways that they can help lead this transformation. And we definitely need companies of every type, of every size, and of every location in the world to lead the way. So once again, thank you for all the participants, and I look forward to working with you all together.
And Alberto, thank you so much personally for all your support over the last year. It's been fantastic. And thanks to my team as well. You know, I want to name them, Jérôme, Howard, Alessandro, and Nicolo for all your efforts, and everyone else that supports us on a regular basis. It's a collective effort, as Cécile said. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed the session. Apologies for the crazy start, but I think we've made it, and looking forward to the next steps. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.